Hugh Hewitt, NBC News political analyst, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on MSNBC. Hugh, good to have you with us. So the president is heading to a very chilly Camp David. He ought to go to Mar-a-Lago this weekend is where he ought to be. But what is the roadmap there this weekend? What are they going to be talking about, and what do you expect to come out of it? Then we'll get to some of the other juice of the week.
Well, they've got to arrange a spending agreement first, Travis. That's the most important thing, because the government will shut down under the continuing resolution in a couple of weeks unless an overarching spending agreement comes in. And as Leader McConnell has said again and again, and I think that Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan make up the best Republican legislative leadership team, along with Kevin McCarthy and John Cornyn, that I've ever seen the Republicans have. They're going to lay out how to negotiate with the Democrats for a 20-month spending agreement, how to get the cap off the Department of Defense, which has to come off because our readiness posture is not very good, how to hold down domestic spending, how to get the dreamers taken care of, and then to decide what to do first on infrastructure. I frankly do not think entitlement reform is in the cards. I know Speaker Ryan would like it to be, but Leader McConnell has said no, and I don't think the president's in a hurry to step on the goodwill created by the tax bill.
Take us into the Republican fraternity now. In the past, the president has been disdainful towards Paul Ryan, the Speaker, at various points. He has been bitter towards Senator McConnell, but now he has functionally excommunicated the high priest of the alt-right, Steve Bannon. Do you think that what's happening now is that the president is coming closer to what one might call the establishment boundaries of the Republican Party and is eschewing the farther right elements of it?
Well, I think that's exactly what's happening. The president likes to win. He is well known for that. The Michael Wolff book underscores that he wants wins. That's all what Donald Trump's been about. I've always said it's a coalition government, the party of Trump and the traditional Republican Party, of which I am a member. And the traditional Republican Party delivered at the end of the year a huge win, the most significant tax bill since 1986, a lot of economic growth. Ryan Zinke is opening up the Outer Continental Shelf. Scott Pruitt is reforming the EPA and cleaning up long toxic sites. The administration is actually cooking on all of its barbecues at once, and along comes this Wolff bill. So who has stabbed him in the back? Well, the guy who's talked the most to Wolff that I know for a fact has is Steve Bannon. And the folks who didn't talk trash about the president are the folks he's meeting with up at Camp David. So in any kind of situation like that, I think it is reasonable to assume that the president is going to lean in and listen more closely to Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who helped him deliver this historic win on taxes, and not to insurgent nationalist voices. So I think there's a clear break with the first 6 months of Team Trump, with the return, by the way, of Reince Priebus into the circle of influence around the president that I think will grow as the year goes on.
With your comments about McConnell and Ryan, at the same time at Camp David, when you were talking, Tyler, about it being chilly there, I thought that you were referring to Gary Cohn and some of the others who might have been cited in the Wolff book. He reportedly is going to also be at Camp David. He reportedly in the book called Trump dumb as something not suitable for television. And I'm just wondering, he was seen as a member of the Trump tax team. What happens to somebody like a Gary Cohn next, in your view?
Well, I think it's very important that if people have been misquoted or wrongly attributed quotes, Michael Wolff left open the possibility that much of what he put in his book is not true. It's rather an unusual marketing strategy. But he said, I got a lot of this on hearsay. So the president's going to ask Gary Cohn, did you say this? Rex Tillerson, when asked if he called the president a moron, never denied it. And I think that sealed his fate ultimately as Secretary of State. Early this year, he's going to exit. But if Gary Cohn gets asked, he's got to tell the truth to the president and own it or disown it very, very bluntly. I don't think we ought to trust a lot of the Michael Wolff book. It's a kind of Kitty Kelly book, and he's got that reputation. A lot of it is just throwing it up against the wall. But the Bannon stuff that's in there, there are tapes. I do believe Bannon quotes. I did the classic Washington read today. I have the embargoed copies that NBC people have. And I looked through the index. There are a lot of people who are not mentioned in that index, people I know that the president has relied on. So I know that Wolff did not have full access to the entire team advising the president. So I treat the Wolff book very, very gingerly. But if you've been attributed a quote that's nasty towards the president, he's going to ask you about it. And as I think you earlier said, Travis, we're all walking around with some Trump tattoos. Everyone's got them. McConnell, Ryan, me, you, everybody gets a Trump tattoo. What matters is how you respond to it when he looks you in the eye and asks directly about what you've said.
Hugh, it's Brian. There's two things to that. Number one, I agree with your points of the book. We're going to wait and see how history plays out. And we hear people on our side of the TV screen, no offense to anybody. I've been listening to people say over and over again, we've never had this thing happen before. I don't know what the heck James K. Polk's administration people said about him behind his back. So Millard Fillmore was widely disliked. I have no idea. So maybe this has happened before, but certainly not in this kind of media environment. But here, isn't this the problem? Even if you don't believe any of Wolf's book and you are a full Trump supporter, if people naturally move on from administrations, as they do, any administration, does this kind of stuff make it harder for people to say, I want to work for that White House? Doesn't it make it harder to find the next great candidate?
You know, Brian, interesting. I think it's the opposite. John Kelly has brought to the White House an order that was longed for by longtime regulars inside the Beltway, by establishment capital E Republicans. There is a system, a paper system, a staffing system that is now there that I think is functioning very, very well. General McMaster got the national security strategy superintended and out under the president's signature and with his endorsement just before the end of the year the tax bill passed. I think what Michael Wolf's book is about is the first 6 to 8 months, which, by the way, are always chaotic. I don't have to go back very far in time to Millard Fillmore, though. That's amusing. I go back to David Stockman putting the knife into Ronald Reagan after 1 year. George Stephanopoulos writing a tell-all on Clinton. This is not a new story. It's just that new environment that you mentioned. It's always and everywhere being talked about.
So let me ask you, we were talking to Ron Christie about a half an hour ago, and I made the observation that I think we in the media and maybe people in the public as well spend a lot more time paying attention to what the president says, specifically on Twitter, than to what the results have been of his first year. If the president put Twitter down for good, how much more popular do you think he'd be?
You know, I can't answer it because I believe the election in November will be about the economy, not about what he puts on Twitter. I think it'll be about Scott Pruitt. Right. You know, I just think if people have got 4% GDP for the first time in 15 years, they're not going to vote to bring the Democrats back. And so Twitter may have been the greatest distraction ever for moving forward the most important legislative and regulatory effort of the last 25 years. We have to wait and see. It's a great question. I just don't know the answer to it.
All right, Hugh, I'll go ahead.
Just sorry, I know we're late. One quick question. I was sort of half joking with some friends last couple of days, Hugh. I said this. If Donald Trump stopped tweeting from his personal account, the Dow would rise 500 points in that day. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't think it can go any higher faster than it is. I mean, I was looking at the numbers already today. So if he stops tweeting, I'm actually kind of afraid what will happen because the market kind of enjoys it, I think. So who knows? Maybe 500 points either way.
Right. Hugh, thank